Returning now to Libya, where the government has vowed to halt the rebel advance on the capital, Tripoli. The rebels got within 30 kilometres of Tripoli before clashing with pro-Gaddafi forces.
Our Middle East correspondent Ben Knight joins us now on the line from Amman in Jordan. Ben, thanks so much for joining us this morning. Well, the rumours are swirling that Gaddafi's preparing to flee Libya. How frail is the regime?
Well, Tamara, you'd have to say that this is the beginning of the battle for Tripoli, and this was always going to be the end game. 6 months ago, when this rebellion began, this is what the rebels had as their goal. Now they've reached it, but now it's a big question about whether they can actually finish it off. What we know is that in the past 24, 48 hours, they have made some pretty remarkable advances towards the capital. There are reports now of fighting in the very centre of the city, which is itself remarkable, but the large bulk of the rebel forces appear to be within around 17 kilometres of the centre of the city. Now, they are moving forward. They've captured, we understand, one of the main defensive bases of the regime, one of the bases of the elite forces, which is controlled and commanded by one of Colonel Gaddafi's own sons. They didn't meet with much resistance there. The reports are that the rebels moved in and started carting away large swathes of quite sophisticated weapons. But now is when I think the turning point comes. It was always going to depend on whether the people inside Tripoli rose up and joined the rebellion. Now, remember, when this began, there were hundreds of thousands of people on the streets of Tripoli out there protesting against Colonel Gaddafi. But that was quickly crushed because, of course, the Libyan leader controls that city. Now, the rest of the country, that couldn't take place. But Tripoli has been under that boot for so long. The question is now, will they rise up? And what we understand at the moment is that that is not happening. That while this rebellion is the rebels have reached some of the outlying suburbs and they are getting some support, the city itself is not rising up in the way that they would have hoped. Now, that could change over the next 24 hours, but that will be the deciding factor on whether, in fact, the end of the regime comes within a couple of days, in 10 days, as one former defector has said, or even if Colonel Gaddafi somehow manages to hang on.
Ben, I recall too from the last time that you were in Libya, you did remark on the rebel forces being somewhat of a dad's army. They seemed quite disorganised and haphazard in their efforts. How would you describe the rebel movement there at the moment in terms of size and cohesion?
Well, the reports from what's happening in Tripoli at the moment is that there are hundreds of troops, not thousands. So this could suggest that once again the rebels are getting a bit carried away with their own success, that the ease with which they're moving forward means that they're pushing forward too far. Now, when this has happened before, they've quickly been beaten back, and that's been a big damaging blow to their morale. On the other hand, it could be that the regime is simply crumbling, and we know that the effort or the assault that's taking place on Tripoli at the moment is being done in coordination with NATO. There have been strikes by NATO on the centre of Tripoli, on the main base of Muammar Gaddafi at the moment. The spokesman for the Gaddafi regime, Musa Ibrahim, has been out there making the point that if it wasn't for NATO, the rebels would be nothing, that they simply wouldn't have got this far. And now it does get very, very tricky because once they start moving into the city, NATO is going to, those jet fighters are not really going to be able to distinguish between who is fighting against Colonel Gaddafi and who is fighting for him. So it's going to be up to the rebels. And once again, it comes down to that crucial question, will the people of Tripoli rise up against Colonel Gaddafi or will they not? You've seen pro-Gaddafi demonstrations inside the city even over the past couple of days. So that's going to be the crucial question.
Ben, do we know where Colonel Gaddafi is at the moment? He's upped the rhetoric in terms of trying to swell support and get government supporters out on the street.
Colonel Gaddafi says that he's in Tripoli. He's made 2 broadcasts on Libyan state television in the space of 24 hours, which is itself quite significant because he really hasn't had much to say throughout the last 6 months. He's only made very sporadic appearances. But he has made 2 statements on Libyan state television, both of them by telephone, and he has said that he is in Tripoli, he's there, he will fight to the end, and has called on the people of Tripoli, the people of Libya, to take up arms. In fact, he's said he's going to open up the armories in the city so that the people can go and get weapons to defend themselves, and that if the men of the city don't feel they're up to it, they should give the weapons to their wives and their mothers. Now, whether he's actually in Tripoli, impossible to say. I don't think anyone but his closest circle really knows that. But I think most analysts are agreed that Colonel Gaddafi is not going to escape. There are all sorts of rumours about him making arrangements to go to other countries, but I think most observers believe that he is going to do as he says and fight to the end.
Wow. Ben Knight, will stay tuned with you throughout the morning. Thanks for joining us this morning from Jordan.
Thanks, Graham.